Um, Welcome everyone to episode 6 of our RSDP Connections webinar series. This is a series that I'm putting together. My name is Rose Clark. I am a Conservation Corps, AmeriCorps volunteer, working with the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships this year on connecting the natural resource work groups to one another and to the university. And so for this episode, we are super happy to be hosting representatives from the majority of the U of M campuses, sustainability directors, education coordinators, and students. And they're going to be sharing with us ways that we can better connect the students and also just kind of hear what's going on these different campuses as we're doing work through RSDP in the communities. There's a lot happening on campuses as well. So a few different program things. We're hosting this event through WebEx if you're joining on the live version. And if you're connected on the computer, you can submit questions as we go in the chat box that you'll see on the right-hand side. So go ahead and send those questions to either all attendees, or all participants or myself, Rose Clark, and we will answer them kind of as we go. If you're tuning in by phone, you'll be able to hear those questions read out loud, and then the people will answer. Also be on the lookout if you're tuning in on WebEx for the poll that will be at the end. This is part of my Serve Minnesota Conservation Corps requirement, and I really appreciate your feedback. So, yeah. Today we have a good host of presenters, the largest number of presenters in our webinar series so far. We have Shane from the Twin Cities, he's the Sustainability Director. We have Heidi Scholl, a Crookston student. We have Troy Goodna, I hope I'm saying that right, from the University of Minnesota Morris, State Sustainability Director, and then Mary Hanneman, who is the Education Coordinator with IONE and a new partner of RSDP as well. So we're really happy to have those folks here. We have a few people who are worth mentioning, the really important figures in University of Minnesota sustainability, but can't be here today. Barry Sandorf is with University of Minnesota Rochester. He's a Facilities and Operations Coordinator and definitely tuned into the sustainability realm. Dan Sidarsky is our Sustainability Director here at the University of Minnesota Crookston. He's just finishing up traveling today. Mindy Granley is the Sustainability Director at the Duluth campus, and she is dealing with some big storm problems today, some aftermath. And then Beth Mercer-Taylor is at the Twin Cities campus. She's the Sustainability Education Coordinator with IONE as well. So Shane is going to start us off with a little introduction into the sustainability realm of the whole system. So take it away, Shane.
All right. Thanks, Rose. Appreciate it. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate this opportunity and look forward to talking with you about sustainability on the University of Minnesota campuses. I'm going to start off by providing some kind of overall background and an overview of university sustainability efforts, and then jump into some highlights about the Twin Cities campus before turning it over to colleagues on other campuses to talk about what they're doing, and then we'll have some discussion at the end. So with that in mind, once again, my name is Shane Stennis. I'm the Director of Sustainability on the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. My focus is principally operations, and you'll hear about that in a little bit. How do we run the facility of the University of Minnesota in a more sustainable way? And then I have colleagues who are on the phone today and elsewhere on the university that work on other aspects of the university's mission relative to sustainability. So with that in mind, kind of big picture context setting, one of the things that really kind of frames up all of our efforts across all of our campuses is the Board of Regents policy on sustainability and energy efficiency. And if you've not had an opportunity to read that before, take a look at it, I encourage you to do so. It's available at policy.umn.edu, and it's relatively straightforward and concise and to the point. But really what it does is it lays the foundation and the framework and the groundwork for our overall sustainability efforts across all of our campuses. The Regents, adopted this policy in 2004 and took a very, approach to sustainability that was complementary to lots of other efforts going on in the sustainability world at the time, very much focused on the different UN commissions and definitions that were out there that were looking at sustainability as a function of economy, society, and environment, and how you think about those three aspects or domains interfacing with decision-making at all different levels and at all different scales. And certainly the Regents also recognized that for the institution, that meant sustainability was also a function of research, teaching, outreach, and the operations that support them, and reflected that in their policy, or the institution's policy, rather. The policy articulates 6 guiding principles. I won't go too much into that, but they're on the bottom of that slide set, and they really focus on how does the university be a leader in sustainability, how do we model sustainable practices, what operational improvements should we do, how do we interface and do more clean energy relative to sustainability in terms of either energy efficiency or reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, as well as what do we need to do on the research front to advance sustainability in these goals, and certainly not last or least, but that education and outreach component, which is probably actually the core of it all, is really how do we educate future leaders, current leaders, on the sustainability challenges and really society's challenges of the 21st century. So as an extension of that, an example of how that policy is kind of translated from an overarching statement of priority to action, the institution in 2008 became a system-wide signatory to what was then called the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, now called the Second Nature Carbon Commitment. They also have a resilience commitment and a climate commitment that kind of encompass both resilience and greenhouse gas emissions reduction. But what the commitment spells out for the institution and what the whole system has signed on for is that we are committing ourselves to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to net zero as soon as possible. And each campus has its own plan for how it's going to get there, reflecting regional differences, but also scale and opportunities that may or may not exist from one location to another. And so you can see on the bottom that we also then consequently have very different targets for how much we're going to reduce our emissions and by what time frame, are all working toward implementing and making these plans actionable as we go forward. So this is just an example of how that system-wide sustainability policy that the Regents adopted has really translated into some tangible and concrete steps as an institution across the system to implement that policy. Real briefly, sustainability organization at the university. For many of you out there maybe working with RSDP or an extension, I'm not sure how visible this is to you in your respective roles, because we struggle with it ourselves here, but I would say that our overall organization across the system emphasizes a really distributed model, much in keeping with the institution's larger kind of governance structure around encouraging both staff at each campus and having at least one person at each campus who part-time or full-time works on sustainability as a core part of their responsibilities. And then there are a number of other staff embedded across the institution in various roles that are working on sustainability. And so this picture that I'm highlighting here actually was from a sustainability conference called ASHE that was hosted in the Twin Cities in October of this past year. And the photo features many of the folks across the University of Minnesota that attended that conference who are also involved in sustainability efforts in one way or another somewhere across the system. And frankly, if we were to include everyone, that picture would be, and the number of people in that picture would be a lot bigger, because there's a lot of folks out there that are working in some way, shape, or form to advance sustainability either within the context of the campus or campuses or in the work that they do with the communities around us. So with that, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and now talk and bring the focus into the Twin Cities. And then you'll hear from, again, my colleagues from other campuses as well about what's going on. But this is a picture of the Twin Cities campus. As some of you may know, the Twin Cities campus is obviously a very large urban campus. We have about 250 buildings on campus that comprise 24 million square feet of space, which is a lot to heat, cool, maintain, manage, and a lot of, in effect, composes a small city onto itself. I think the most recent stat I pulled up was that if the University of Minnesota's Twin Cities campus was its own city by itself, it would probably be the 6th or 7th largest city in the state of Minnesota, and we're sitting on about 1,000 acres of land between St. Paul and Minneapolis. We expect about 80,000 people here on any given day during the semester. 50,000 students, plus about 16,000 employees, and then visitors, clinic patients, hospital patients, people who are here for athletic events, you name it. And then we're also a very intense campus in terms of our energy consumption and our resource consumption, because we have research laboratories and hospitals which tend to be, and clinics, which tend to be compared to, let's say, a classroom or an office environment, a much more resource-intensive type of operation or type of function. Of course, sustainability work on the Twin Cities campus comprises and covers research, outreach, teaching, and operations, just like the policy articulates, and there are activities going on in all those spaces. Today, myself and my colleague Mary from the Institute on the Environment are going to focus on the teaching and the operations components of it. Dr. Jessica Hellman from the Institute on the Environment covered the research component in the RSDP talk in April, and certainly from an RSDP standpoint, you probably are already well aware, maybe more so than I am, about all the activities that are going on in the Twin Cities campus from an outreach standpoint and an extension standpoint. So from an operational sustainability standpoint, we really focus on 4 areas, and these are relatively new established priorities for us that we are still kind of shaping up and trying to hone in on. The first one is greenhouse gas emissions. How do we reduce our use and consumption of fossil fuels in both heating and providing electricity to the campus, as well as for transportation systems around campus, and all the other instances that we can touch and physically impact. The second piece there you see is water stewardship, obviously with the Mississippi River running right through the heart of the Minneapolis campus, and all of the Minneapolis and St. Paul campus being in that larger Mississippi River basin, we are really mindful and sensitive to not only how we discharge stormwater and where our stormwater goes on any given day, but also what water we consume, because as a colleague of mine stated the other day, it's all one water. And so we get our water from the Mississippi River, and when we're done using that water and it's been cleaned up, it gets discharged back into the Mississippi River, and it really is all one water cycle. And so we're renewing our emphasis on that as a priority area. Third, food systems. We run a fairly large dining services operation on campus. We work with Aramark, and they have been a great partner for the Twin Cities campus in terms of incorporating sustainability into the work that they do. You'll see an example of that in a minute. They actually have a dedicated sustainability coordinator for the Twin Cities campus that we work with really closely. And so we're taking that as an opportunity to figure out how do we grow a sustainable campus food system through a variety of techniques and efforts and strategies. And then finally, waste management, and I would actually kind of expand that picture a little bit, and not just say it's about waste management and recycling, but rather the whole gamut of procurement of materials and of what do we buy to how do we dispose of it at the end of its useful life, and how do we extend its useful life. So we're really working across that spectrum of areas and priorities and trying to embed those in the work that we do. From a operations staff standpoint, I have one other full-time staff in addition to myself that works in our office. We employ between the 3 and 4+ students. Right now it's 5 students. Those students work full-time during the summer and part-time during the school year, and they help advance they're a critical player and critical in advancing the sustainability work that we do. And then we also work a lot with class-based interns and teams throughout the academic year to align with their learning objectives and academic objectives and our projects and our priorities that we're trying to advance from an operational standpoint. And then, of course, we're supported by subject matter experts. You already heard me mention one of those people being a sustainability coordinator in dining services. But we rely heavily on people embedded throughout the functions of the institution, whether that be transportation or recycling services or in our procurement specialties and functions and areas to really take sustainability and make it part of their roles and to help us advance sustainability in the performance of their specific technical expertise or function, and conversely, they come back to us and we work with them closely to figure out how do we advance the work that they're doing and that they're interested in pursuing within the context of that function or that area of expertise. So we work really closely with folks across that spectrum as well as energy, and I didn't mention that too much, but I work really closely with our energy staff here on the Twin Cities campus and our capital planning staff to figure out how we incorporate sustainability and accelerate that in the construction of our buildings and in how we deliver and consume energy services on campus. So our office, the two full-time staff and students, we have really kind of about 6 roles. I won't go into all of them in great detail, but you can see them there. I think the ones that I would highlight the most is one thing it seems like our technical experts struggle with is that they do good work, but then they don't know how to necessarily get out or communicate, or how do they engage the university community in helping to advance that work. So we play a real critical role in providing that, being a liaison, and also helping to tell that story and to share that story with individuals who would be interested in it. The other piece that we spend a fair amount of time doing on is program leadership. There are a number of programs that span technical functions and technical areas of expertise and specialization. And because of that, and they may have a sustainability focus or they do have a sustainability focus, we play a real critical role in leading those programs. And one example of that would be our Living Laboratory program, where we enable university students, faculty, and staff to have access to university land on campus, little plots of land outside of buildings and stuff like that, to do either applied research projects or demonstration projects that advance sustainability. So we play a key role in facilitating that program and working with folks from the grounds crew to the capital planning and urban planning staff and everyone in between to ensure that those projects have a pathway for getting off the ground and getting implemented. Couple highlights. The first that I just want to kind of share and draw some focus to, the first would be we are doing some work with our dining services staff, as I mentioned, around sustainability. And one of the things that we've launched and is an example of a very targeted personal engagement activity. This is led by our dining services sustainability coordinator. She does a Weigh the Waste event every fall and spring, interfacing with students who live in residential dining on campus. And what they actually do, you can see on the left-hand image, is they have a table set outside where students bring their plates when they're done with their meal. They scrape off the food waste that's on that student's plate and put it into different categories, whether it's still edible food waste versus, they say, non-edible food waste, like a chicken bone, versus like a napkin. And then they weigh that at the end of the day and tabulate results over the course of a week and use it as a way to educate students about how much food waste contributes to kind of our overall waste stream, how much food is wasted in the United States, and how much of a problem that is, because the more food we waste, obviously the more that we have to produce and find land and invest resources in producing. And then students, you can see on the right-hand side, in the residence halls, have an opportunity to sign a food waste pledge that basically encourages them and commits them to reducing and minimizing their food waste by not taking too much and by also making sure that they're thinking about this as a topic. Been a highly successful engagement event and a way to really bring a topic that's germane and on top of mind nationally right now into the residence halls and interfacing with the students who live on campus. And we have about 6,807,000 students that live on campus, mostly first-year students, and all those first-year students have a meal plan. And then we have a smaller percentage of sophomores and upperclassmen who live on campus in kind of on-campus suite-style apartments. But the vast majority of first-year students live on campus, so this is a great opportunity, too, to kind of interact with them at an early stage in their academic life here at the university. The final thing I wanted to highlight before turning it over to Mary is what we're doing on the energy side. And we have a climate action plan as part of that Second Nature carbon commitment. That climate action plan spells out our emissions reductions targets and goals and how we're going to reach those. And we're really pressing those forward principally through energy efficiency. And so this is an example of a lab building that we recently did a pretty cost-effective, relatively creative retrofit on and commissioning on, and have cut our energy costs nearly in half and reduced our carbon emissions by a third in that building. So we're trying to figure out ways in which we scale up examples like this as we go forward. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Mary to drive this, and we will let her take away on sustainability education.
All right. Thank you, Shane. And I'm going to talk a little bit about IONE for those who didn't have a chance to listen into episode 3 of the RSDP Natural Resources webinar, which featured Jessica Hellman, who is the director. Well, now she's been almost a year at the helm of the Institute on the Environment, which is part of the University of Minnesota system-wide, but based on the St. Paul campus. And IONE has, which is our short form of the Institute on the Environment, is I-on-E. We have 3 different areas of focus, as she mentioned in our presentation: discovering solutions through research, preparing leaders, which is what I'll be talking about, and then engaging partners, but recognizing that all of those are interconnected. Oh, next slide. There we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do within sustainability education, which is together with some other programs that I'll describe briefly, is really around leadership development. And we have an undergraduate sustainability studies minor. We connect undergrad student leaders through a variety of opportunities, including our own IONE Undergrad Leaders program, as well as supporting student group and student leader efforts in sustainability areas. We have a program called ACARA that has a model called Knowledge to Impact that works with students who have social entrepreneurship ideas, and so we supply both education and mentoring for budding entrepreneurs. We have a graduate program called Boreas that supports leadership development among graduate students, and we deliver communications and strategy training for faculty and staff. So at the bottom of my slide, you can see there's a number of ways that RSDP and community partners could collaborate with us. First one is proposing capstone projects. We have a Sustainable Communities 4004 class for students that does feature capstone projects, so working on sustainability projects in the community. People that are interested in mentoring students, we would welcome to hear from you. Also, if you have research questions that are ones that you're struggling with that you would like to see if there's anyone here that could support you on, let us know. And then finally, connecting with us for your own professional development and making connections and networking. We are exploring some possibilities for engaging with sustainability professionals, such as workshops, short courses, and programs designed for professionals, so not our traditional student audience. And we have someone here on our team that's looking into that, and he'd welcome your input if you have ideas. And that's all I had, so I'm going to hand it off to, oh, here's our contact information for future reference, both for University Services, which is where Shane sits, and the Institute on the Environment, where Beth Mercer-Taylor and I work. So with that, I'll hand it off to Rose.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. That is wonderful. I am really excited seeing those really tangible opportunities for collaboration. So I'm here in Crookston with Heidi Scholl. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Heidi Scholl. I'm going to be a junior here at UNC, and I'm studying horticulture. That's my major, and I'm also minoring in environmental science. And I just noticed on Mary's slide that they have the sustainability studies minor, and I was interested in that. So I think it would be great if we had that on our campus. So yeah, so on the Crookston campus, we have over 2,000 students, and we have half of them are online students on campus.
I think so. Yeah. So when I pulled out that number, I was surprised because it doesn't seem like there's that many people here,
No.
and it's because a lot of them are not here on campus; they're online.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, no out-of-state tuition, and there's a big international program on the UNC campus, and mainly the majors on this campus are the natural resources and agriculture.
Yeah. There's also a smattering of other majors, business, church management. I think we have a sports science major. So it's pretty diverse, but for sure the majority of the campus there's a very large focus on agricultural studies, agronomy, different. There's an aviation program for spray pilots. So it definitely affects what our campus community is like and what our campus culture is like as well.
So some of the things that we have going on the UNC campus in our sustainability department and kind of outside of that as well. So the picture actually on the upper left, that's from last year. We don't have one from this year, but that's a community garden that I'm actually working in this summer, the Alan and Frida Peterson Garden, and so that's been my internship this summer. And then down below on the left, that's a picture of us from the self-sustain meeting that we had this past spring. And here we're talking about the wind turbines here.
Yeah, we were at Morris. They were gracious hosts. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And Self-Sustain, for those of you who don't know, is a system-wide sustainability conference where representatives of students and staff from all the different campuses come together. I don't know if we had anyone from Rochester this year, but they're always on our minds as well. But yeah, and the host campus gives tours. They show us what they're doing, and then students in their sustainability groups help to lead discussions, and it was just a really great time and good kind of cross-pollination of ideas and catching up on what's going on in the other parts of the state.
Mm-hmm. And then also a picture of this cooking class that we did. We did a couple of those last semester. So this one I think was, we did one with Dr. Spadowski and his wife, and we made some good food, and
we had a pie
the local food kit, and then the pie that was fun too. Yeah. So yeah, learning how to do just how to prepare food that's local, making it yourself. I think that's important too, along with the local foods initiative as well. So.
Yeah, and interesting thing, this particular project that the Crookston Students for Sustainable Development, which is our Crookston Sustainability Club, so to speak, this effort, this local foods class series, we had 3 last year. It was really pushed by our international student members. Half of our club is made up of international students. They do really good work and bring really good perspective to our group, and I think they were really wanting to, see how people here in this area prepare their foods and how they can prepare their foods in the limited space that they have in their residence halls, which this is one of the kitchens in one of the residence halls, so we were kind of learning on the spot. So it's a good effort, and I think we're hoping to continue that this year.
Okay, some some other things here. I just want to point out the pictures here. So that's the high tunnel that I'm also working in this summer. That was, looks like it was a month or two ago. It's a lot bigger now, and there's everything's grown a lot. But yeah, and then the rain garden. That's by one of the residence halls on campus, and we've been maintaining that this summer too. And that's got native prairie flowers and plants in it. And we talked about the cooking class and the cattail research that's been going on as well under Dr. Swiderski. So there were some cattail pellets that were made, and
here is a bale of cattails that were harvested. So this is a project that Dr. S has been working on through Northwest Research and Outreach Center, which shares our campus. And it's a really cool project trying to figure out ways to utilize cattail, which grows pretty invasively in the wetlands in the Northwest region here, using them for biofuel, livestock bedding, different methods for utilizing this biomass. And in harvesting, it reduces the need for pesticide application. It creates open space for waterfowl like ducks that really like this open marsh as opposed to a red-winged blackbird that really likes the closed-in marsh that the cattails make. So it expands habitat, and it also reduces the nutrient levels in our local waterways, which is a really big deal because the Red River of the North, which is where our watershed flows into, it has a really big problem with nutrient loading, phosphorus, nitrogen, going into Lake Winnipeg and creating not great conditions. So removing the nutrients in the form of this cattail biomass and using it to create, for example, fuel pellets is one way that we're trying to, impact our local systems.
An alternative method for energy.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a few other projects. We have one LEED certified residence hall, Evergreen, and it's beautiful. We're very proud of it. We're working on putting in some rainwater catchment systems on campus and in the surrounding buildings. There's a active conversation going about how we could integrate composting into our gardening areas, and also in the dining hall. Shana really liked that idea of love food, no waste actions. Maybe we'll look into something like that on our campus coming up. We have a Cans for Cancer recycling program that Heidi runs, where we encourage recycling by making it into a fundraiser for cancer research. There's an aquaponics system that's being developed on campus, and we're doing some solar assessment and solar panel installations on our new wellness center that's opening this month, I think. And then we also, one of the more recent conversations has been on the potential for hiring a year-long Green Step sustainability assistant who would help Crookston, the city of Crookston, with their efforts to become a Green Step city, or a level 2 Green Step city, and 3 and 4, down the line. So yeah, we're really trying to reach the larger community as well as expanding the sustainable actions on the Crookston campus as well. So next we'll hear from Troy over in Morris and what they're doing over there.
Great. Well, nice to visit with all of you this morning. And as Rose said, my name is Troy Goodnow, and I serve as the Sustainability Director at the University of Minnesota Morris campus. We're out here in West Central Minnesota, a beautiful historic campus. About 2,000 or so make Morris people, about 2,000 people come to Morris every day during the school year and make it their home. And we're about 1 million square feet. So I think if I'm referencing Shane's slides correctly, we're about 1/23rd of the Twin Cities campus. But so the Office of Sustainability at Morris does a lot of different things, and so if you're like my parents, you're probably still wondering, are there actually jobs in this sustainability thing? And the exciting thing is there are, and what you heard today is an expansion of people doing sustainability work across the University of Minnesota system, as well as what you might not know is there are sustainability coordinators being hired all across North America higher education as well. And so we're busy doing a lot of different things. For our office, we really work hard to see the Morris campus and community grow as a model of sustainability, principles, practice, and excellence. So our work is really deeply connected to obviously the Morris campus, but also in the community we serve here. A big part of our work happens with students, and students are key to the Office of Sustainability. Our office is an office of one, so myself serving in a staff role, and then I work with lots of students. So last semester I worked with about 16 students on different projects. On the picture you're seeing in front of you on the far right-hand corner, the woman with the slightly greenish hair, it's hard to see, she was a Minnesota Green Corps member working on food systems at Morris. And I'm proud to say that the Office of Sustainability and the Center for Small Towns, myself working with David Flugel when he was still here at the center before he took his Southwest Regional Sustainable Development Partnership role, we worked with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to launch the Green Corps program in Minnesota. And so now we've had many students, graduates, alums of the U of M system participating in the MPCA Green Corps program all across our state doing great work. And so we do a lot of different things. So what do offices of sustainability do? Well, we coordinate work, we do a lot of accountability and reporting work. So all these, we're always reporting and sharing information about what we're doing, and whether that's reductions in our carbon footprint or improvements to composting and waste reduction. We do a lot of communications and messaging work, and Shane had referenced some of the work that they do to get the messages out at the Twin Cities campus, and we've benefited also from some of the work that Twin Cities has done in some of the framing they do. We do a lot of education and training, faculty, staff support. We help create new programs when it looks like there's opportunities that need to be explored. We do a lot of outreach and engagement with external partners. And obviously a big part of the work is culture change. We're trying to change the culture on our campuses and in our communities, celebrate our progress, and celebrate and create the future we want to live in. And so these are just some of the students who have worked with me the last 2 years. That's the best part of this work. I thought it would be interesting to just provide an example of how we do work with students, community partners on campus and in the community. And so I'm going to do that with just an example of one project that we've been working on. And so 3 years ago, the Morris campus began a conversation with local and statewide partners about how we would engage rural audiences in a conversation about climate change, also knowing that climate change is still kind of a charged topic. And we didn't want to use language that divided right off the bat, so we really focused on a conversation around extreme weather preparedness and resilience. And so Morris was the first location for something called the Morris Area Climate Dialogue. This is a partnership between, like I said, Jefferson Center and IATP, but the Jefferson Center does this really interesting intentional citizen jury process where for 3 days people take part in this really intensive a couple days learning about climate and weather. Anyway, the results of all of that work, I'm pleased to say, led to our being awarded the Environmental Initiatives Community Action Award. And standing front and center, you see two amazing students, Sophie and Anna, who are actually holding the award. And so so much of our work basically is done in partnership with students. And so this is an example of a meeting that students held. So in November of last year, our student intern leaders basically pulled together a meeting. This was a partnership with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency where we had many community leaders come together for an afternoon and talk about the ways that extreme weather and climate was affecting Morris, and to discuss ways we could be more resilient. This is part of something called the Morris Model Planning Initiative. And so these students had, I think, something like over 50 meetings in over a year and a half with individual small teams, and then some of these larger team meetings to do this work. Coinciding with that, the city of Morris recently signed, back in October 2015, signed a climate protection agreement with the city of Saarbrück, Germany. And just recently, several folks from the U of M system went to Germany across our campuses on a delegation. But what's exciting is for our rural town, you know, Saarbrück, Germany is like us. They're a small rural community. Morris has amazing assets. You know, we get over 70% of our electricity in Morris. Our 1 million square feet, we're a city within the city of Morris, comes from wind. They're pretty remarkable. And so this climate protection agreement is an opportunity for us to exchange information about clean energy progress and resilience progress in our communities. We also, working with our students, and here you see the gentleman in the blue, Kyle, and on the far right, Sophie. These are two of our amazing students, and then in the green is Kelly Ash, program coordinator at the Center for Small Towns. We worked, these students had so many meetings over the last year, helping to basically develop a set of community resilience goals and to develop a community resilience plan, which they completed and has been delivered to our city manager. But at the heart of our efforts at Morris have been and are students, amazingly talented organizers, amazingly talented writers, amazingly talented at analyzing data. And so I'm pleased to say we delivered our first community resilience plan 1.0 to our community leaders. And this has helped catalyze other efforts. So one other thing going on under this big Morris Model envelope, or banner, umbrella I should say, is something called the Morris Model Clean Energy Hub. So the city of Morris, the Morris campus, has worked together with a company called Eutectics, and the Twin Cities also is a partner with Eutectics, but to basically figure out, are there ways of bundling small projects on campuses, or in communities rather, bundling a bunch of projects together to make them affordable and bring the financing in. And so we've got really three kind of big initiatives going on at once. We've got our Morris Model or Planning Initiative. We've got the Morris Saarbrück Partnership, and we've got the Morris Model Clean Energy Hub. So all of this wrapped together is basically the Morris Model. And so when we're talking about how all these efforts fit together, we describe that as the Morris Model. And we've got a website, so if you go to morrismodel.org, you can read a little bit more about what we're doing. You can see in the picture below some of our team. This was during a day when we actually Skyped with our German partners. And again, we had two amazing student interns in the back row in the red shirt and the black shirt. One of them was a fluent German speaker, so she actually even did translation for us while we were having the Skype meeting. And some of you may recognize there at the bottom David Flugel, the Southwest coordinator. So lastly, I would just mention a couple other things, some of the other things that the Morris campus is working on where students are engaged. For example, the Morris campus is working to explore how battery storage and solar PV would basically help us reduce our peak demand charges at the university and allow us to use more clean energy on campus, cutting our carbon footprint. The Morris campus and the university largely, but the Morris campus was gifted a new property in Ashby, Minnesota. This beautiful piece of property is called the Morris Eco Station, and that's a gift that of new land that we hope will be accessible to all kinds of partners across the region in the university to do student research or even faculty research. Together, the Morris campus with the Twin Cities has launched a new program called Innovations in Environmental Sustainability. These are students from last year's program, We just ended the program a week ago. We had 14 Australians come halfway around the earth to basically learn what was happening in sustainability in Minnesota, which I love. So they spend a week in the cities, they spend a week in Morris, and a little bit of time around maybe even a couple other campuses, but mostly in Minnesota. And so pretty neat that people come all around the world to learn about sustainability here in Minnesota. And then lastly, some work that we've done over the years has to do also with improving water literacy and communication in West Central Minnesota. So back in April 2014, for one example, we held a meeting. Again, this was coordinated by students, called the Exploring State of Water in West Central Minnesota, where we had all kinds of representatives from the Pollution Control Agency and Geologic Survey and soil water conservation districts come to Morris in an attempt to try to help them and us understand the systems challenge of our water challenges in West Central Minnesota. So with that, I'll close. You can always email me. I'm at sustainability.morris.umn.edu or sustainability@morris.umn.edu. And I'll pass this back to Rose.
Thank you, Troy. That's wonderful. I have a lot of questions for you. I'll talk to you later, but I'm excited to hear more about this stuff. So Shane, we have about 5 minutes left for information sharing before our kind of discussion topic. If you want to let us know what's up at Duluth.
Sounds great. So I know Mindy wishes she could be here today, but unfortunately because of the storms up north, she is penned in at her house. Fortunately, everyone's safe. So I'm going to try to do her slides justice, and I will move quickly. I think the one kind of key point that Mindy would want to make sure that I leave you with is that they, in their sustainability work, really integrate student experience into that whole model at Duluth, and that student involvement in their sustainability projects and their sustainability initiatives is really critical. For those of you who've never been up to Duluth, it is kind of mid-sized regional college with 11,000 students spread across 5 colleges, a beautiful campus overlooking Lake Superior. They've integrated sustainability pretty heavily into a lot of different things that they do in their campus strategic plan. They also have an energy action plan for the campus, and they, like the other campuses in the system, are involved in the Second Nature Carbon Commitment and in STARS, which is a sustainability benchmarking program, which we could talk more about. They focus on water, energy, and waste in modeling sustainable choices in terms of the work that they're doing on campus. And like I mentioned earlier, they really try to identify lots of different pathways for students to experience sustainability, whether it's living it, learning it, or doing leadership of it. And then, of course, integrating that into the academic and curricular experience is really critical. Also on research, I won't cover too much there. And then I think the one, it's not certainly unique by any stretch, but Duluth, like Morris and Crookston, really emphasize the integration with the local community and have done a lot of work partnering with Duluth and the surrounding area to integrate sustainability and collaborate on sustainability efforts between campus and community. So Mindy is an office of one with student staff to help, and she focuses on these roles you see there around supporting student learning, trying to create a more sustainable campus, and then raising awareness of these resource issues, as well as partnering with students, faculty, and staff elsewhere. Just as a quick highlight, I think Mindy would want me to talk a little bit about this work that they're doing at Duluth around solar. Troy mentioned some solar work at Morris. Mindy, as part of a grant with the University of Minnesota, 3 other academic institutions in the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, launched the Sun Delegation up at Duluth and in the Twin Cities and elsewhere in the system. And students were focused there on finding ways to deploy more solar on campus. And so it's really been a big push for them. Duluth has some existing solar already at McCloskey Stadium, as well as at the Bagley Nature Center and Learning Center. But these are relatively smaller arrays, and Duluth is really interested in looking at ways to deploy more solar across campus and is working actively with students on those efforts. So as you can see here, some of the highlights, they actually were able to secure $100,000 in student activity fee funding to help support solar development on campus, and are working really closely with City of Duluth on broader initiatives within the community and the campus. And here's just some information about their solar team that they have put together. You know, different partners both in the community and nonprofits like Equilibrium 3, as well as National Renewable Energy Lab, City of Duluth, and others that have been Minnesota Power, their utility provider up in that neck of the woods. So, and I'm just going to scroll past a couple of things here. So really focused, again, on learning by doing. And this is another, you know, that Sun delegation team is a great example of that. They have been able to identify sites for solar deployment on campus and how they would integrate and advance more solar and deploy more solar at the campus and in the university to help offset their carbon footprint and also provide more renewable energy and build a local economy. And that's involved classwork as well as you know, collaborations with outside partners. So I think with that, the next few slides are just some detailed example of things that they have done relative to this project. And I will stop there so we have plenty of time for questions. And I know that Mindy would always be happy to entertain more questions outside of this webinar if you have more detailed questions about Duluth campus sustainability in general or their solar activities specifically.
Awesome, thank you, Shane. That's perfect. And yeah, Mindy definitely wanted to highlight too that she really appreciates RSDP's contributions and support in the you know, building of their wind turbines, their farm, and their really cool farm partnership called Victus, which is worth a look as well. I'll include a link to it in the website. So awesome, thank you all of you for sharing what's going on at these different campuses. It's hard to keep track of all the things happening all over the state, but it's nice to get a little glimpse into these right now. So I asked these campus reps to think about these two questions and share their thoughts. Where are there opportunities for RSDP to connect with campus sustainability groups? And how can we better encourage students to participate in RSDP projects, work groups, and boards? We've talked about how that is kind of a piece that is missing in our conversation sometimes. So yeah, I'd like to open it up to any of the presenters that want to speak to those two questions. Anything you can share with us? And remember to take yourself off mute if you are.
Well, this is Troy and Morris. Maybe I could start. I think there's so we are already engaging with our Southwest. With the partnership in Morris, and so we've been partnering with them a couple different ways, and including more recently on some of the community resilience stuff I alluded to. But I guess it seems to me like there is a really big opportunity to, when we think about all these community resilience goals that we have for our community, and so we pulled out of our community about 9 different goals around healthy tree canopy, alternative transportation, expanding renewable energy, rain gardens, community gardens, climate education, energy efficiency practices, resilient infrastructure, extreme weather planning, and then in some of our other planning with Jefferson Center, there was a lot of talk about agriculture and water infrastructure and soil, and so I think in all of these, there are opportunities to basically engage students in teams and to connect up with partnership people and resources. So I'm excited about what that might look like going forward for the Morris campus. And I know that the partnership has also been interested in resilience planning and has done some really cool resilience planning across the state in the last year. And so I think there's a lot to partner on there. And then the second thing I would drop is, I would mention is, we have an interest also in helping our region explore the state of water in our region. And so I know that Minnesota Extension has interest in this. I know that the partnership has interest in this through natural resources area. And the Morris campus has an interest in this. So I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit more about water, which obviously is important, super important, is life, but also there would be a lot to share and unpack about the water situation in our region and the challenges, and every region has water challenges, but regionally there are some specific water challenges that we could work on together.
So Rose, I'll just add to what Troy said and maybe take a little different angle. I think that the thing I would say is we are happy to help connect RSDP and others with students on campus. We can serve as that conduit. So if there are specific opportunities or things that you want to be promoting about RSDP, certainly reach out. We have, and social media by no means can substitute for an actual in-person conversation, but it's often a first good gateway, and we have a very large social media audience on the Twin Cities campus, particularly that is largely driven by students, both in the Institute and the environment, as well as the University of Minnesota sustainability channels. And we're happy to utilize those to help promote activities across the institution that are, in the vein of sustainability or helping to advance sustainability somewhere in the campus or the state or elsewhere across the globe. So, just from a really tangible standpoint, we can be that conduit, and we're happy to fulfill that role as needs arise.
Awesome. Thank you, Shane. Just a side note, you might have noticed if you're joining us on WebEx that I've opened a poll. Just 2 quick questions to give me a little idea of how we're doing. And yeah, anyway. Mary, did you have any, you kind of commented on this in your presentation, but do you have any additions to how we can better connect with students? Maybe not, but I do see that we have a question. We had a question come in. Maybe we can just address that as well, really quick. Linda asked, "What are some of the key levers that drive operations? Leadership interests, cost, short-term and long-term, regulations, student and faculty activism." I think maybe what she's asking is how these things get rolling on campuses. Shane or Troy, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it and then turn it over to Troy. So I would say yes to all those things that Linda just mentioned. It is a mix of economics and operational priorities that are established because of things that are not money, as well as, student and or faculty and staff voicing a perspective on a particular issue, or the broader community for that matter. The institution, is responsive to all those different dynamics. And certainly what we, particularly in the work that I do, try to find a way to do is how do we realize all those things, often by monetizing things that are not traditionally monetized. How do you put a cost on stuff like carbon? And help, institutional leadership see that those are real costs to someone somewhere, and that they someday might be costs to the institution if, a carbon tax or cap and trade scenario ever came to pass in the United States. So we do a lot of different things in those different respects, and I would say that all the things that Linda mentioned in her question are germane to those operational institutional priorities and help inform them, help drive them.
That's awesome. That all sounds really accurate as far as the situation on a Crookston campus too, and I try to drive home to the students here. Crookston is not necessarily driven to strong activism or putting themselves out there. Our students, they're involved with a lot of different pieces, and I try to drive home that it doesn't take a lot of people to make a change. It just takes some very impassioned people that have a very clear vision of what they want to accomplish. And it's really true that the students have a lot of power in this kind of campus system. So things like our Evergreen Hall, that was really pushed by 2 specific students who are really strong leaders in the Crookston Students for Sustainable Development group, and it's amazing to see what they accomplish. So. Mary, are you still on?
Yes, I am. Sorry, earlier I was speaking. I didn't realize I had to unmute myself on the computer and on my phone.
I'm sorry. Linda had a question come in that's directly tied to you. Unless, do you have a comment on that other question?
Just echoing a bit of what Shane and you mentioned, Rose. Part of the key is helping students to understand the different mechanisms and how they can have agency in different ways. The activism is certainly one way, but part of activism is understanding where decisions are made and the relationships between students and faculty, staff, the leadership. So we work quite a bit with students in trying to help them be effective in the ways that they want to make change, but also, you know, stepping back so that they are developing their own leadership skills. So what was the next question?
Yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. Linda, we are at 12 o'clock, so we'll have to start wrapping up, but Linda was hoping you could say a little bit more about the student leadership program and how it works to connect across campuses.
Sure. Well, here at the Institute on the Environment, the students that we're working with most closely are the ones here on the Twin Cities campuses. But we do have 2 programs, one that you mentioned earlier, Rose, in your intro, the Self-Sustain program, which people may already be familiar with. RSDP has supported it in the past, but that's where student leaders from each of the campuses get together on a geographically rotational basis. So it's been on every campus except for Rochester. And we have student leaders convene and discuss programs, and we're really grateful for RSDP's support of those programs, particularly last year in Morris, previous years too. So the second one is we have a symposium where students can present their research that we open up to all of the campuses, and we do help support students' travel costs for coming here to the Twin Cities in April. But I think we would be open to other opportunities for collaboration between students, and that's one of the things that we talked about last year, or this last spring, is how to try to help students maintain connections. Some of the realities are that students have a lot of demands on their time. So, figuring out how to develop relationships across the state that can be maintained over time, I think, is a challenge. But we're certainly willing and interested in working together on continuing to connect students.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Shane, Troy, and Mary, and Heidi for presenting, and Mindy from afar. I think this is a really awesome conversation, and I'm sure we'll continue to keep having it and figuring out how we can best support each other. So yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, this webinar is recorded and will be available on our webinar home site at z.umn.edu/RSDP webinar, and also on our RSDP YouTube site. So feel free to share or watch again, or get all those good nuggets of information out. And our next webinar will be the 3rd Thursday in August. I don't remember right at this minute who the presenter is, but you can put that on your calendar. It'll be August 18th. So look forward to hearing you all again next time. Have a great Thursday. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Rose.